Okay, are we ready? We'll call the meeting to order at 1:04 p.m. Welcome everyone. Just so everyone here knows, we are putting this meeting out virtually today so that the public can see the operation of the Police Services Board. And do we have the ability for questions, Chris, on this one?
So we'd have to amend our agenda, so because we've never asked for, but if you want near the end, can we do that, Brad? Brad says yes, we can. People can ask questions, and at the end, so they can type them in as we go along, and at the end we can review those questions.
Okay, thank you. All right. So moving on then to item 2 on our board, I'll ask for the roll call, please.
Chair, all members of the board are present.
Thank you. And we'll add Kelly's name in there because it's not on my copy. Thank you. I understand that we do have about 30 members of the public joining us virtually today, so that's very nice and welcome. Item number 4 is the approval of the agenda. I have before me resolution number 2020-11. Be it resolved that the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board approves the agenda as printed or amended. Is there any amendments being requested to the... Yes, Dan?
Yeah, I'm wondering just quickly under new business, general traffic enforcement.
Okay. So we can put that in with the traffic that we're going to talk about now, the off-road vehicles and because I have a few things too concerning e-bikes and what have you. So we'll lump it all into the section on when we're reviewing the off-road vehicles bylaw and what have you. So noted. Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Yeah, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure? And that, pardon me, that will be as amended so that we're adding the other items concerning traffic. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature this afternoon? Seeing none, we'll move on. We do not have any presentations or delegations in front of us this afternoon. Item number 7 on our list is the approval of the minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Temiskaming Shores Police Service Board meeting held on January 13th, 2020 be approved as printed or amended. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those? Dan and Tyler, thank you. Is there any questions, concerns, amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will stand as printed, and I call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Under Communications, item 8, we have a letter from Thomas Carrick, Commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police. The letter discusses a recent protest activity, and the letter has been received for information. Item B is a letter from Phil Whitten, Superintendent Bureau Commander, Municipal Policing Bureau of the Ontario Provincial Police, regarding change in security check and revenue distribution processes. That is also received for information. And the last item on there is item C, and it's order in council number 911/2020, and it's a reappointment of Tyler Towarski to the Temiskaming Shores Police Service Board. Welcome back, Tyler. It's great to have you back with us. That's also received for information. And I have a resolution here, 2020-13. Be it resolved that the Police Service Board agrees to deal with communication items 8A to 8C according to the agenda references. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Monique, and a seconder. Dan, is there any questions or comments concerning the information received? Seeing none, I call a question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 9. We'll turn the meeting over to Inspector Burrow from the Temiskaming Detachment for the OPP Detachment report.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I forwarded the copy of the police report to Chris, who distributed it to the police board, I believe. And we've got back Yeah, thanks. The statistics and the report that I've provided that will cover the months of January, February, and March. I opted not to provide the second quarter as June is not completed, and then I didn't want to provide a part report. I've also noticed that Chris sent out a meeting schedule for our next meetings. The statistics for the second quarter, I can provide that to the board prior to the next meeting if you prefer, or whatever the board suggests. We're obliged to have 4 meetings per year, so if we do not have another meeting, we'd be short one. And with the present situation with COVID, I don't know if that'd be a factor, if that'd be acceptable, but we can look into that. But whatever the board desires, I'll fill your requests.
Sure,
okay?
we can do that.
Whatever you want. In regards to the report, I'll refer to the first report that I provided, and then public complaints. Unfortunately, we had 2 public complaints in regards to policy. One's in reference to one of our officers who was improperly storing his firearm, or her firearm. As a result, we dealt with it internally, and she was dealt with accordingly, and now documented, and this practice will not repeat itself, hopefully. Periodic audits to make sure that they're all in compliance with the storage of their use of force equipment, and then when they do not, we deal with it accordingly. In regards to conduct, we had 1 complaint that was filed in April, and it was in regards to improper procedure versus the officer. He was provided an overnight accommodation in ourselves, and then when he was released in the morning, he had some issues saying that he had a medical issue, not a public intox issue, and that was the nature of his offense. He was saying that he had some prescribed medication, and that was the result of taking too much, accidentally taking too much of his medication. Having said that, we did seize some alcohol in this person, so the OIPRD did investigate, and then they cleared our officers on that one. And then we had another one in late March, and then it was in regards to one of our officers who did not take proper notes, did not maintain their daily journal, which we are obliged to. We have clear policy in regards to the care, and then instructions how we are to maintain and document all incidents and all day shifts and everything that we do on our day shifts. That was not followed, so that officer was dealt with accordingly. So that was an internal complaint filed by myself. In regards to secondary employment, none were filed during this quarter. I move on to the daily activity reporting patrol hours. For the quarter, number of cruiser patrol hours was 1,639.25 hours. Number of snowmobile hours, 11. Foot patrols, 65, which to me is really good, considering that part of that quarter the schools were closed, so it didn't permit our officers to do patrols or walk-arounds in the high schools. So considering that, 65 hours is an increase to what we're used to seeing, and it's really good to see our officers in the community and doing the foot patrols. School patrols, 11.25 hours. So that, like I said, that was a little lower than what I would have preferred, but considering COVID, schools being closed, it's pretty good. In regards to staffing updates, not too much movement. For our organization during the last few months, all transfers, promotions, competitions, they've all been canceled, and they're just starting to reevaluate and then reopen some of the positions. For our detachments, we're very fortunate because we had a couple of vacant positions that we filled just prior to, meaning DACs, meaning special constables, but other detachments weren't as fortunate, and then they were working without those positions filled, without the proper personnel. So a lot of our other detachments were aching to get this process in line again. So PC Jack Valiants, he's transferred to Temiskaming Detachment on the 17th of February. He was assigned to the E4 platoon. I did provide a decision note to our commissioner, as we had one officer by the name of Claude Gagne who transferred to Temiskaming administratively, this individual was off on accommodated duties, or off, actually was completely off because of medical reasons. He transferred from North Bay. He's been here for a year and a half. I've spoken to this gentleman on the phone a number of times just to do a wellness check, but I've never met him. So now we've got updated health information forms, and then from my position, there's absolutely no reasonable prospect that he'd be coming back to active duties. So I made a decision to request to replace this individual, and it was approved, and the FTE is online, and then we have offers going in to replace this individual. So my goal is to have active members and then fill our frontline officers so that we can have guys on the road in the cars and visible to the public. That's where we need our officers, in my opinion. So that's just steps that I'm taking to increase our frontline coverage. COVID-19, I'm sure that you've heard lots about. That's all that's been focus of the media and everything else. There's a lot of changes, a lot of processes that we put in place in our detachments to deal with the issue. I don't think there's a need to go in total detail, but just some of the highlights of what we've done. Our DACs, at the beginning we only had one DAC reporting to the office, and we provided the other two DACs laptop, and they were doing their work from home. And then we changed that just recently because it was difficult, and because we got a brand new DAC that's not trained, and then it was difficult to do the training from with the laptops and them being away, doing it electronically. We now have two at the office and one that reports from home. So as you noticed, or may have noticed, or may have heard, the office door at the front have been closed. People, the public, when they attend the office, they have a number. If it's non-urgent, if they can be dealt with through our comm center in North Bay, they're asked to call the comm center, or call it and speak to the dispatcher and report their occurrences or their issues to them, and they'll make a determination and if an officer should be attending or taking the call, or if it's urgent, if it's administrative. We have a cell phone at the front office monitored by the secretary, and then they call and then they speak from that cell phone, and then they can hopefully deal with the issue without having any personal contact. If there is a need, then there's a pre-screening form that we go through, and we ask a number of questions to make sure that they have no symptoms to exhibit COVID, or they haven't traveled or anything like that. And those are some of the cautions that we've been taking. In addition, we've got PPE, personal protective equipment. We've got a full property vault equipment is all available to the officers, have been provided. We had some bags provided for individual officers to make sure that they didn't miss anything, and they're encouraged to wear the PPE, but we are still leaving it to their discretion. If they're into an incident and they see that there's a need to use PPE and it'd be beneficial, then it's up to them to use it. One of my big focus right from the beginning was the PPE is not only for your protection, it's also for the public's protection. We're going in to nursing homes or hospitals or any care that's been on lockdown, and then they're really they're checking the staff to make sure that they're not bringing everything in. And I don't think it'd be fair for our officers to go in and not use the PPE and not protect our clients. So I've been very strong on that, and hopefully our members are respecting that. In regards to the number of targeted media releases for this reporting period, members devoted time and attention to a number of crime-targeted areas, and focus was placed on the noted. In February, we were dealing with counterfeit, especially money, and MSV patrols and proactive measures to make sure that people are traveling in their trails in a safe manner. In March, their focus was distracted driving, the big four, which is distracted driving, stunt driving, speeding, and wearing your equipment, your seatbelt. There's also a focus at this time of year, it was there a few months ago, in regards to the bears starting to come out, and we reinforced Bear Whites program, and we continue to assist the MNR with monitoring and then relocating the nuisance bears. Just in passing, there was one in North Cobalt. We had a number of calls. Initially, we tried to scare them away, and then hopefully that's enough of a deterrent. They can use rubber bullets to try to put them a bit of pain so that they understand and not come back to those locations. But we had a couple that were returning, and then it was the M&R's opinion that they were not going to be relocating, so they trapped the one, and then I haven't got an update in regards to, apparently there were two. So they relocated the one, and they were still trying to capture another. So. Our CSO continues to be engaged and report on criminal incidents, serious general incidents, and our occurrences where public awareness is important and or public assistance for information is requested. We hear the media releases all the time, regular updates in regards to the major criminal investigations that are ongoing, or appeals to the public for information to help us out to deal with missing people or trying to solve some offenses that's occurring in our area. Crime Stoppers, that still remains an effective and unanimous means of members of the public to provide information. And then if people are not willing to come forward, we always prefer that people are willing to abide and be witnesses. But if they're not, we still appreciate the information, and Crime Stoppers is a good means to report it without providing a name. The only provincial safety campaign that was advertised for the No 3 months involved the Festive Ride campaign. This initiative was in effect from the 23rd of November to the 2nd of January. Just in passing, we did forward the paperwork for grant application for the next, I believe this year they want to do the 2-year segments. So the application will cover 2021 and 21 and 22. And I believe that everything has been signed by Temiskaming Shores, and it's been forwarded to the Ministry for looking for approval. And as mentioned, the focus for this quarter was on highway safety and proactive efforts being the big four. Any questions today? No. The Special Constable Program, great timing. Yeah. Couldn't have come in a better time. They started on the 3rd of February. The initial goal was to have them do court security, but since then the courts have been big changes. Or attendance in court has been minimized drastically. They're starting to bring it back. I believe in July they're going to start to have trials and going to start to deal with criminal matters. At that time, we'll be utilizing them. But since then, we've reassigned them. They would give us the opportunity to provide them more training with our report writing and our internal processes. And to date, we have the 3. And then they're fantastic. They're really helping out, and we're just looking for keeping busy there in July when the courts come back up and when they start doing the court security. I don't know what that's going to look like, but if they're trying to catch up with the caseload that's been put over, I believe that we'll have some long court days. In regards to the reports for violent crime, Records Management System has provided a copy of the more serious offenses. For violent crime, if you go down the list, it tells you we're doing fairly well. Most of our major offenses, we see a decrease in the number. And where there's an increase, I just took the time to verify to ensure that we do not have any specific issues or concerns in our area. For example, the sexual assaults, 7 were reported. Just to give you a really quick idea of what those are all about. In January, we had a third-party disclosure where a 28-year-old female subject was reported being sexually assaulted by a known acquaintance. Initially, she provided some information to start the investigation, but she declined to provide a follow-up interview, and she did not provide for enough information for us to get reasonable proper grounds and lay a charge against the suspect. But we did provide assistance and then followed up with the victim to see if she could cooperate and then voluntarily provide information so that we can deal with the information. But for this matter, she was not willing, and then there's no way that we're going to force victims to come forward, and then we strongly encourage they do. but if they don't, then we have no choice but to deal with them in another supporting matter. On 11th of January, a 48-year-old disclosed possibly being assaulted by an employee. The subject was highly intoxicated when she reported the incident, and then when she sobered and then we did some follow-up, she refused to cooperate. So there's no way for us to verify if these allegations are true or supported. 16th of January, 16-year-old received a threatening text by an ex, and in the text there's some discussions and admittance that the individual was sexually active with a 15-year-old. We all know that that constitutes sexual interference, and on top of that we had threats, so this individual was charged accordingly, and then it's before the courts. Then we moved to, in March, domestic investigation where a 19-year-old reported sexual assault by a 26-year-old ex-boyfriend, and that was dealt with charges also. Those are just the type of occurrence that we're dealing with. We, victim services and the media, spend a lot of time letting the people know what's acceptable behavior, and then provide assistance and support, and then a path for these individuals to report, and then to ensure that we follow up properly and take care of their needs. But there's no targeted, noted issue within our community or sexual predator that I'm aware or concerned about.
They're not random acts, they are targeted acts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another area where I figure I'd mention is the robbery, just because of the seriousness of this type of offense. The first incident was two individuals doing crystal meth, and then as a result, a cell phone was taken, stolen, forcibly taken from the individual, being a 22-year-old, and then we investigated, but quickly determined that was unfounded. Even though it's unfounded, it still has our books registered as a robbery, brings concern to the community because it's a very serious incident. I just wanted to mention so that alleviate some of the concerns. And another matter happened in late March. A number of youths, all known to each other, attended a residence and then utilized bear spray, a bat, assaulted a subject, and then demanded money, and took computer games and electronics, and then actually stole some money. So the key thing here, it's all known individuals attending another residence, so there's obviously more to the story that they're willing to provide to us. We did lay charges to all the involved parties in those circumstances, and the matter is still before the courts. Again, it's not just a random act where we have to be concerned. Very serious, and it's in your backyard, and we all have to be aware and be cautious. And then if there's any suspicions of that type of activity, you're encouraged to call us, and then we'll look into it. In regards to property crime, we've been doing fairly well. The rates and the number of those types of incidents are decreasing, which is great. The only one area of concern that I reviewed was the theft under. We had a considerable increase of the theft under incidents, and I had a review just to see what that was all about. And a lot of those were scored from theft of gas, and then just people going to the gas station not understanding or thinking that they paid leaving the pumps, and then we get a report of a theft, and then we find out that it's an accidental, or all of the theft of gas occurrences, we did not lay one theft charges to date in that quarter. And there's a very limited number of actual occurrences where we did lay charges, and of those, one was a shoplifter for a local store. Another was a domestic related incident where an individual took items that was not legally in a position to take. Another was a stolen bicycle, which is a common thing, but this was one of those very expensive bicycles, and we did recover that bicycle and immediately a charge on that. Another one was stolen computer from the library, but I guess the individual didn't know that the library is fully videoed, so that was easily completed, and then the items were recovered in a timely manner. Another example of these theft under was a theft from the change room at the Pool and Fitness Center. We always have to remind our people to lock your things, especially if you're going to the pool, and whatever you put in the lockers, make sure there's no valuables. And that was one of the incidents, and we had a charge out of that one. And other ones are family-oriented occurrences where you have the grandparents that are victimized by the grandkids or things like that. One of them was for money, and the other one was just items taken. So basically, those are the theft of occurrences, and the other majority are very, I don't want to say it's serious, but they're not as much value, and then you could say not as serious in nature, theft under. So they're investigated, but some of them are very difficult to resolve. So, any questions in regards to those occurrences? Or? In regards to drug crime, we have a couple of trafficking incidents, and I'm sure if you're in the media, you heard about the search warrants that were executed at a couple of our residents in our area, which are a great deterrent. It's great work by our street crime officer. He's busy, he's getting a lot of information, and I believe he's making a difference. So. As a result of those stats, I also provided the clearance rates for violent crime, which is 75.5%, for property crime, where we're at 27.4%, and drug crime, which is at 100%. I also noted on that report the number of criminal records that we have conducted in that quarter. For the criminal record checks, we have done 57, and for the vulnerable sector screening checks, we have 213. In regards to the criminal record check, there's a process that's been implemented since COVID, where people file their applications electronically. There's no more face-to-face and the need for the individuals, members of the public, to attend detachment to provide the information. They do everything electronically. And then at the beginning, we were only accepting those screening checks that were mandatory, like if it was for work employment or anything like that, or very important for the individuals. Those are the ones that we process. The other ones, we just put them on a waiting list. So. I've also provided the statistics for the court offenses network system, and then it highlights the number of charges for the criminal code and provincial statutes. So under the Highway Traffic Act, for this quarter, we had 448 charges. The Criminal Code non-traffic, we had 247. Liquor License Act, we had 7. And for other violations, we had 95. We did see a decrease in the Highway Traffic Act enforcement. Part of that was the fallback of the number of patrols and number of vehicles that are being stopped, just because of concerns in regards to COVID. See, from our perspective, doing a traffic stop, it's a service that we need to provide. We need to show the colors, and then we need to do the patrols and the enforcement to deter the public. But we get individuals that call in and complain because their officers are not wearing the PPE, and they're saying that our officers are putting the members at risk. And then we have other members that are complaining that the officers are wearing the PPE, and it's not personable, and then they can't recognize the individuals, and they're not comfortable with it. So we're getting it for both sides, so we're trying to have a happy medium. My advice or recommendations to the officers is that when you do your initial, there's absolutely no need to be within the personal space of the individual you're dealing with, and then make your screening or ask your screening questions from a distance and make a determination if there's a need to apply the PPE. The thing with that is that at times it happened at the one occurrence where the individual is impaired, and then once you make that you establish that the individual is impaired, and you have to go hands-on and affecting the rest, then you're not prepared. So I leave it to the discretion of the officers, use their best judgment, and then the incident will dictate if there should be wearing their PPE or not. For traffic-related charges, speeding, we had 261. Seatbelts, we had 7. Impaireds, we had a number of impaireds, so I don't know why it's at 0 here. I'll have to look into that. And then distracted driving, we had three of those charges. The next report dealt with the motor vehicle collisions, and then it breaks it down by the type. It lists the fatals, the personal injury, and the property damage. We're basically even with personal injury, and then quite a bit lower for property damage, which is great, but usually is subject to the type of winter we have, and then the road conditions and everything else. So I review the stats, but there's so many variables that come into play in regards to the accidents that it's very difficult to have any proactive measures beyond what we're doing now. We do have an analysts that provide 2-week reports, bi-weekly reports, and if there is certain zones where we have a higher than normal volume of accidents, they'll let us know, and then we can deal with those circumstances accordingly, and then maybe increase patrols or find whatever measures we can to show the colors and try to deter those incidents. At the end of the report, you do have the billing summary, you have the calls for service, and then you have a summary of them all, and then you have the summary detailed one. Just in addition to the report, I just want to bring to the attention of the board of one incident where we have one individual, one officer that was stopped outside of our area for impaired driving. He was charged. He's to appear in court in July. He has been suspended with pay since the date of the occurrence. And then once he's done with the criminal code aspect of it, then the Police Services Act will apply. Since then, we've had quite a bit of messaging from our commissioner as it relates to conduct of police officers. Our new commissioner is very big on integrity, professionalism, making sure that we lead by example. So that type of activity or behavior will not be tolerated in our organization, and he's taken a very strong position in regards to dealing with this situation. So I just wanted to bring it to the attention. It was all over the media. I hate hearing those media reports, but we're up front. We tell you like it is, and then we don't hide that kind of stuff. We just let people know that we take care of it.
So any questions concerning his report, or any? I just had one. I realize you don't show any impaired on there, but are you finding now impaired driving by drug is becoming prevalent also?
Yeah. Yes, and that's why, like, that skipped. I didn't notice that, but I'm aware of quite a few incidents where we did lay criminal charges, impaired charges, and now it's more difficult. It's not only with impairment, and then the breathalyzer is only detecting alcohol. Hopefully, at some point, we're going to get further machines that can detect drugs, but we do have DRE, drug recognition experts, that we can call. And then they do some testing and then make a determination if the individual is impaired by drug and or alcohol. Having said that, as soon as COVID relaxes a bit, we're going to resume meeting with the hospital because there's mandatory provisions in the criminal code where it provides us the authority to demand blood samples for any individual that's driving believed to be under the influence of drugs. And we want to make sure that the hospital is on the same page as we are. Some other jurisdictions, some of the hospitals are refusing to abide by those conditions or by that law. It's fairly new. So we're taking steps to educate our local hospitals and caretakers to let them know exactly what's our authority and then why we're doing it. So everybody's really cautious, and I understand. about people's rights and privacy and everything else. But when it's mandated and then you have the authority, you need the reasonable proper grounds to believe the offense has been committed before you provide any demand. But when you do, they're subject to abiding and cooperating. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I understand that part. I think, too, from listening to your report, drug abuse is going a lot further than driving. Some of your occurrences, and especially where they're known subjects to one another and things are happening. So
yeah,
it's sad, really.
And as concerning as that is, the number of incidents where naloxone is provided or given to the victims or the subjects. And we've got so many occurrences. Kirkland Lake have a higher number than we do, but we do have a significant number of occurrences where officers show up or the individual's unconscious, and then we have to administer naloxone to bring him back to life, basically. And to me, that's very concerning. It puts our officers in a very difficult position. But they do their best, but it's notable. Like it's and to me, it's very concerning.
It is very concerning. I mean, 5 minutes is the difference between life and death in a case like that. So it's got to be very demanding on your officers for sure, or anybody, any emergency service that's called upon
Absolutely.
to administer naloxone for sure. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, I have a resolution before me, Resolution 2020-14. Be it resolved that the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board acknowledges receipt of the January to March 2020 OPP Temiskaming Detachment Report. And can I have a mover and a seconder? Tyler and Monique, thank you very much. Any further questions? Seeing none, I call a question. All in favor of the resolution? Carried, thank you. We'll move on now to item 10, new business. The first item of business in 10 is my report as an OAPSB director. And I can tell you that we've been meeting virtually also as an OAPSB board and trying to stay on top of things. I do have a meeting coming up this Thursday at it's either 4:30 or 5 o'clock. Obviously, they're all done virtually now. So we have quite a few things on there to discuss. Other things that we will be discussing later here, I'll be taking reports to the board. In our minutes of the last meeting, it was indicated that I would be attending the OPP Spring or OPP Summit on January 30th, and I did. It was in conjunction with an OAPSB board meeting in Toronto. And what we did, we got together with people from the ministry and what have you and discussed policing options, OPP governance matters, and the new regulations that are coming in that they don't feel will be here before 2021. It's interesting to note that throughout the province there is concerns, the same as we have in the north with distances, with detachment boards being formed. Some are enjoying them, some aren't, and it depends on the area. We put together a committee on OAPSB consisting of members in the north to have a look at it, and it's been very difficult getting together to communicate, obviously because of the distance and to get things set up with COVID-19 and other people's commitments and work. But it did come out at that meeting that the government it's not etched in stone that there's going to be detachment boards, and they're open for discussion, and that it has to come as a mutual agreement, or hopefully as a mutual agreement that we can get through that. So we've been working kind of diligently in the area with Phenom and what have you. DSAB, as most would know, there was an AMO report come out, and we do have it on to discuss perhaps DSABs becoming the police services boards. Our local DSAB at our last meeting last week, we put forward a motion to have our CAO write to Solicitor General and advise them that we as a DSAB are not interested in being police service boards. Quite frankly, in our area it's difficult. Under DSAB we handle from Latchford to, we handle a district of Temiskaming actually. Joel as a police officer in the detachment, he also looks after Temiskaming. Temiskaming is looked after by the Nipissing DSAB. So that in itself creates an issue there as to who's going to do it. And then we have two detachments. So we have the detachment in Kirkland Lake and the detachment in Temiskaming. That would in a sense be the Police Service Board looking after two different detachments. You'd have to have alternate members, I would think, because there are members from down here looking after Kirkland and vice versa. So that's all up in the air yet, and we're going to discuss it a little bit further as we move on to this report. But that's really all I have. Like I say, I do have a meeting this Thursday, and we'll see what comes out of that. I'll just a quick look here to see if I have. I do have the thing here from our DSAB, but I'll address it a bit later on. So that's all I have for 10A. Under 10B, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and I think Chris sent us out an email if you want to carry that, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, so just as a follow-up, back in April, the Minister of the Solicitor General sent us out a letter saying that the deadline for the completion and adoption of your Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan would be extended past the January 1st, 2021 deadline date. So we had reached out, there were a number of municipalities that had also reached out to DSAB to see if they would look at taking this on as a district-wide Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. And so DSAB, Kelly Black did get back to me yesterday, and DSAB has not formally adopted it, but Kelly is working, so things were put on hold for a little bit due to COVID-19, but she is planning to get a meeting scheduled with area municipalities, so there would be 23 municipalities in the entire district, and the board, I believe, DSAB board is also going to discuss it at their August 19th meeting. So the idea would be that DSAB would hire someone who would look after coordinating, developing the plan, and then looking as well as an action plan, how we're going to put that in place going forward, and bringing together all of the various partners. So the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan is more than just police services. It's looking at how we integrate that with mental health services, victim services, youth services, education. So there are a lot of agencies that will be involved in helping to develop and then implement that plan. So that's my update right now. Hopefully we'll have more words soon, and hopefully the DSAB board will approve that in August. As far as an actual date for the new deadline, nothing has come out yet. So the minister said that they were going to be consulting with municipalities through AMO and the City of Toronto. City of Toronto is not part of AMO, that's why they're dealing with the two of them. And then they'll advise us in due course on what our new deadline is for that plan.
That's correct, Chris, thanks. I also believe there are a couple of municipalities that we haven't heard from yet. So, we're waiting to hear from them. And of course, with the COVID-19, it put everything on hold. And when we sit and talk about like a plan to cover the whole area, and it will be a blended plan, because certainly in some areas there's different requirements than others. But I think basically the social needs and things like that are similar throughout. So we thought that would be the way to go about it, and the Temiskaming Health Unit has also expressed interest in working on it with the DSAB. So I think that's probably the way to go, and it'll give us a good general overview of the area and what's going on. So you're right, we do have a meeting on August 19th, and it is on our agenda to discuss it. Any questions concerning that? None? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Item C, which is the ride grant application, and the inspector alluded to it, and the forms are in there and they have been filled out. So you can see that 2021-21-22 ride grant was submitted in June, and we've requested $19,507.68 for year one and $19,926.96 for year two. And just for clarity, if people are listening in, these are municipal ride grants, and the inspector has that money to put on extra dedicated ride programs within our jurisdiction. So that goes a long way to keeping our jurisdiction safe and getting the ride programs out there. And they usually do them during the Christmas season, the festive season, when people have a tendency to party a little more. But I mean, I think if we look at the ride statistics over the years, they're stable or down a bit. So people, people are learning, and the more they can be out there, the better it is. So that's exactly what this ride program is. Chris, did you have something to say there? No? Okay. So that's been sent away, so we're just waiting for approval. We don't see why we won't be approved. I think we have been every year for several years, so hopefully that'll come in. So okay. No questions concerning that? We'll move on to item D, and it's Nipissing Street traffic concerns. And what it is, Inspector, we have some areas, we're going to kind of bring this up and talk about some traffic concerns around town and what have you, and get your input into it, and see what we can do about it. We're also going to have a discussion concerning off-road vehicles. So these two subjects may well roll all into one discussion here, and we'll get things going. So you want to start out, Dan, with your Nipissing, and I'm going to say ditto because it's on all streets, so you go ahead and start.
Yeah, well, we call it Nipissing Street traffic concerns because that's where it came about, but there's traffic concerns all over the city, actually. But, the city spends significant amount of dollars on Nipissing, grading, gravel, calcium, over and over again. And there's a couple of individuals who have made it their goal in life, I guess, to destroy it as soon as we... And, it's not only a traffic concern, it's damage to public property. I've got good videos of it and everything, so if you want to see them. But the problem stems far greater than that. I mean, understanding COVID aside and everything, because I realize it creates a problem for everybody, but we walk twice a day, 5 kilometers each time. It's nothing to see 3-4 stop signs totally disregarded. Pedestrians actually have to stop, look and listen because the vehicle drivers aren't. And speeding throughout the municipality is just getting ridiculous. The kids have a certain age group of kids have a game where they try to jump the railroad tracks, see if their tires will squeal if they get enough weight off of the ground. So it's just becoming ridiculous. And I'm not saying that I'm not degrading you or anything. I understand the problems you face, but it's really becoming a problem, and it's become much more evident in the last 10, 12 months that there's just no regard for other people, and that takes away from the sense of community. So I certainly want to raise that concern. And again, the municipality spends a large sum of money on infrastructure, including Nipissing, and we spend a dollar amount on policing. So unless one is helping the other, then we're wasting a lot of money here.
Yeah, well, in regards to ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, yeah, it's always been a concern, but I agree. It's being more often than not now that we see more on our roads. See, for us, it's very difficult. We do the enforcement, but we have the suspect apprehension pursuit policy and manual, and we got to be so careful in regards to how we stop people, and then our authority to chase people is basically diminished to the point where we don't do it anymore. Basically, it's because of the safety of the individual who's driving, and also for the public. We take that into consideration for if you got a small provincial offense infraction compared to the safety of the members of the public. Letting the individual fall far outweighs taking a chance of doing the pursuit. But there's other ways that we can enforce that. And I've received some emails, I've viewed some videos in regards to concerns for four-wheelers and those vehicles on our roadways. From my personal perspective, we know that it's a concern, and we will make it a focus patrol, try to bring it to the public's attention to be more careful and report those incidents so that we can follow it up. But it's a small community, so if we do some digging and we spend some time, we can make a determination of who those offenders or violators are, and then deal with them one-on-one and see if we can change their behavior or their habits. Before we take any further steps, such as it's up to the municipality's prerogative if they want to do some bylaws in regards to traveling on their municipal roadways for ATVs, skidoos, and all those kind of things. I think that's extreme because there's a lot of people who are complying and then they're enjoying the liberty of doing that. It's those few that are rooting it for a majority, and then it's those few that we will try to deal with. I will be doing a focus patrol. I was talking to Staff Sergeant Forster this morning before coming to the meeting, and then identified the concerns greater than what was sent to me. And actually, I viewed the video that was sent by a concerned citizen, and the yellow side-by-side vehicle that was on video. I've seen him traveling through the streets of Hillbury. I live in Hillbury, play tennis for my son, and I saw that vehicle go by a number of times. Very slow, very respectable, not committing any offenses, but I did not follow up and see if he was registered or had proof of insurance. So a focus patrol initiative will determine that, and we'll make sure that the messaging is made clear that you will abide by the rules or you will be receiving a provincial offense notice. Another vehicle was Camel package side-by-side. Didn't recognize that one. But to me, a greater concern was the motorcycles. And you know that they're off-road motorcycles. They're not fit to be on the road. Those are the ones that we have to address, and those are the ones that are more difficult to track. Activate the emergency lights ain't going to stop. We know that. So now we have to observe, find out where they're coming from, and do a bit of follow-up, and then do it that way as opposed to stopping the person in the act. You know what I mean? We got to do that in a safe manner, and I think by doing follow-up and then getting the officers involved and then directing in key areas, it'll make a difference. We'll try to make a difference anyways. Beyond that, if there's any further complaints or troubled areas, I saw very briefly the video that you showed me. That's by the Wabi. There's railroad tracks, and I totally understand why people would want to try to jump there. If that's a key troubled area, if we get some information of the times that this is occurring, we'll get the vehicles. And then we also have four-wheelers. We'll put the four-wheelers out there. If it's a patrol car, the individuals know that the patrol car can't go in the field, they won't follow. But if you got a four-wheeler behind you, you're more apt to pull over, or we can do some strategic following and then figure out where these individuals are going. So.
Yeah, with regards to the stop signs, that's cars and trucks, and that includes the red lights as well. I mean, there's no stop anymore before turning right, so, and it becomes very prevalent down around the manor and those places. So, and I do understand the concern about getting into a chase with an ATV, but these kids are passing on the right, passing on the left, and with that video I showed you, there was actually a family of 4 just before that video started, so it's getting carried away a little bit, so thanks.
Anybody else got? I think too, Inspector, I mean, I understand. I've been there. I know it's very difficult. And I'm glad to hear you say some targeted patrols, because I think, and I'm not being critical. I know you're under stress for manpower and everything else. I think we need to see some random patrols more often, off on the side streets and what have you. I walked up to my daughter's the other day and a car just blew right through the stop sign, didn't even put the brakes on, and it wasn't a kid. You know what I mean? They're building up bad habits, and I think if we can see police cars a little more off of the main streets and in some of the residential areas and around. As far as the ATVs and everything else, I mean, you know where I live. I sit and watch them drive down the sidewalk going across the bridge. Those kids aren't old enough to be on the road, so they think they can drive on the sidewalk, dirt bikes and four-wheelers. You know, and I know you can't catch them. When they take off, don't even try, because somebody's going to get hurt. and then it is. But other things that I've noticed, and we've got a lot of vehicles out there with big tires on them that are sticking way out past their wheel wells and throwing rocks and everything else. I don't know, I've been out of the game a long time, but I think it's still in the Highway Traffic Act. Noisy mufflers. And just as a point, and I mean, you know, you can't be everywhere all the time. I got a call from one of our senior citizens' home at 2 o'clock one morning. There was 2 pickup trucks come up from the south side by side doing about 80 miles an hour on Lakeshore Road. You know, I mean, that happens. I mean, you know what happens, I know what happens, but I mean, it is happening out there, so, you know, that's my concern, and I think when I hear you say focus patrols, that's great. Figure out who these people are. And I'm not after the family that are out for a ride. That's not what we're looking for. These things are meant to be used for that. I mean, obviously, except for dirt bikes, shouldn't be on the street. You know, they're not licensed and what have you. And there's quite a few of the pretty quick four-wheelers running around that aren't licensed also. So, you know, that it's not the father and son team that go out for a drive or whatever they do. I mean, it's not that. It's like anything else. Those are the people that are making it difficult for the well-intended people because they don't feel safe out doing it either. So, you know, I think if we could work on that. And I have one, it's kind of ironic, from the park. I had one question to ask, and I said, well, I've been out of it too long to answer it without looking it up. E-bikes. They're not allowed on the Stato Trail, correct, I believe? An e-bike?
E-bikes are if they're not using their motor. So if they're in pedal mode, they're allowed to use the saddle trail.
Yes, that's exactly what I said. This particular person doesn't have pedals on theirs. As far as being on the highway, Joelle, this is a lady that, you know, comes in from the park to pick up a few groceries, and she's on the road with an e-bike. Is there an issue with that? I don't think there is. I mean, we see them around town also. So, yeah.
No, I don't.
She's not from here. She said she has been stopped by police where she's from, and they don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
And she's not out driving all around type of thing. Anyway, okay. Just curious. I'm not sure of the actual law, but I did tell her, Chris, that on the Stato Trail you have to pedal them. You can't use whatever type of motor you have. Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, just add to your comments, sir. I get it, but a lot of our work has to be proactive and providing the information. Like those kids, you're saying they're not even old enough to drive those four-wheelers and all that. Well, they're permitted. They're not old enough to purchase them either. Usually it's the parents. Well, where's the control?
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree 100%.
You know, like the parents are actually permitting their kids. They should be knowing what their kids are doing and what they're doing with those dangerous toys, right? Yeah. So education is going to be huge, but we will follow up, and then the parents are responsible.
Oh, I realize it. It's the same as snowmobiles in the wintertime.
Exactly.
You know, the ones that go down with their following their parents to the river, I don't see a big issue with it. But then you see them going up and down the street themselves, not old enough, and you're right, it's education, and it is a parental responsibility. And perhaps we need to do some type of notices in our book, too, our paper. Yes, Chris.
So I was going to mention that on the, I think we've kind of combined D and E together. So on the ATV or off-road vehicle bylaw, I made a note that, it's been over 10 years since we've done a review of that bylaw. And so some of it, what I'd like to do is a little bit of public education as well, so people know, and it's sometimes a difficult bylaw to read because it's defined as no off-road vehicles are allowed on a highway or a municipal street, but you are allowed an all-terrain vehicle if it's defined as having low-pressure bearing tires. And however, even after that, there are a series of prohibited streets that you can't drive even those ATVs on, and those streets are listed in the bylaw. So I think we'll do a little bit of an education campaign on, what streets you're not allowed to have an ATV on, what's the difference between an off-road vehicle and an ATV, so that people understand that as well. So, like Joelle was mentioning, the dirt bike is not, I believe, an all-terrain vehicle. That is an off-road vehicle. Yeah. So we'll do a little bit of a public education campaign from our end as well. But I'm wondering, does the board feel this would be the ATV bylaw would be something that would be beneficial for the city to do a review consultation on, and then come back with any revisions? So typically in that type of situation, the city, so this is a city bylaw. Yeah. The Police Service Board, I know, was involved when this bylaw was developed. The original one, Doug, I think you were chief back in 2005 when we did our original. I remember working with you on that. So this was revised in 2009. So the Police Service Board certainly would have some input on the review, but council would also do a public engagement and public consultation and see if it still fits our needs today. Does that make sense to everybody?
I certainly think it would. I mean, if it's 2009, we're going on 11 years old, so it's time to review it. And it is a confusing bylaw to read, and that you think you're allowing it and then you're not, but you are talking about two different vehicles. So yes, I probably would be a good idea to review it, and we can bring it back to the board for a review, and, you know, yeah, I agree.
Chris, if you need any assistance whatsoever in regard to media releases, we have a CSO, and that's her duties. Just reach out, and we'll put you in contact, and then she can help out in regards to the wordings and then how to distribute the information.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah, that would be perfect, thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Doug, am I on here? Can you hear me? I was going to add to the conversation. I think that with COVID, there's a lot of staycations happening, and I've heard that the increase of recreational vehicles has skyrocketed. So we might also have a lot of new riders and potentially unsupervised riders. So an educational, promotional resources might be helpful, in particular this year.
Yeah. It's all encompassing, and like you were saying, it's a parental responsibility. And if a person driving on the road is not licensed and has an accident, man, I wouldn't want to be the insurance guy. You know what I mean? So, but a lot of people think, oh, that won't happen to me, But anyways, we were all young once. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I agree. I want to make sure the OPP are fully involved because, 80% of the people that are using them on the roads right now are obeying all the laws. But we don't want to add confusion. I mean, if the Highway Traffic Act says one thing, let's make sure our bylaw follows so we're not creating more confusion dealing with the other 20%.
Yeah, I think a focus patrol initiative is warranted, and it's going to be time well spent. And then in the focus patrol also include to verify those vehicles that have the off-road kits on them, the lift kits, and then the bigger tires, and they've got muffler systems now that they alter the noise as they want, and then some of them are extremely loud.
Oh, yeah.
And to them, for the younger generation, I guess it's enjoyable to. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Anything else on those two items? So we'll move on then to item F. Provincial appointee vacancy. As you know, Ruth Shepardson recently completed her term as the provincial appointee to Temiskaming Shores Police Service Board. Ruth was first appointed on December 5th, 2012, with her term ending on May 9th, 2020. So we do have a vacancy on the board now, but in saying that, we certainly enjoyed having Ruth on our board. And I have a card here, so I'll ask the members to sign it before they leave today, and we'll also have a token of appreciation for Ruth from the board, from the city, for her years of service on the board. And I've spoken to her briefly since then, and I think she misses us, but she was certainly a valued member, and it was always good to make, when she came in, she always had a news article for us. So, it was great, and we really appreciate the work that she did for the city.
Chair Jelly, if I could just, for those who may be interested in applying, it is posted on the Public Appointments Secretariat, and I'll have a link in our minutes to that, but if you Google Temiskaming Shores Police Service Board Public Appointments Secretariat. It will bring you to that page where you can get information on how to apply. So if there's anybody in the public who is interested, I know we've had a couple of people reach out to us already. So if you do know of anybody who would be interested, please encourage them to apply, and hopefully we'll have our provincial appointee shortly, so we're back at a full board complement.
Well, my concern there is with all our talk about detachment boards and recommendations and regulations that are coming in, not to have provincial appointees, but to have municipal appointees, and that, I'm not too sure the branch is going to be moving too fast on doing it, but you never know. We're actually quite fortunate compared to a few boards around the province. There are some boards that don't have quorum and they can't meet because they don't have provincial appointees. So they were speeding them up, and they got quite a few done, and then it seemed, well, with COVID, of course, nobody's in the office working, so it's slowed down again. But we'll see. Hopefully, anyways, we'll get somebody. I mean, even if it's a year or two. So, okay, item G. Appointment of a new board secretary, and it's my pleasure. Be it resolved that Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board hereby appoints Kelly Conlon as Secretary of the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board effective June 23rd, 2020. Could I have a mover, please? Nick, and a seconder, Tyler? Any questions or comments? Welcome. We will do our best to make your life easy. And, you know, it's, we have 4 meetings a year, and then there's other things that have to be done. But we'll all work together. You're not too far away from somebody who's been doing it for an awful long time. So I'm sure you'll have lots of help. Anyways. So having said that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. And Chris, you didn't put yourself on here, but you've been with us since how long? 2007.
2007. Danny reminded me of something. I went on, it was a lot longer than I thought. So I was the youth representative to the first Haileybury Community Policing Committee in 1989. So that's going back a couple of years too. Anyway, but I've enjoyed my time with the board, and certainly thank the board for their support and encouragement over the years and past boards. And like I say, I'll be there to help Kelly. I'm not leaving the municipality, but it's just a realignment of some different duties. And so, anyway, I certainly have enjoyed my time and have learned a lot over the years. So.
Yes. Well, you've certainly been more than a big help to the board with your knowledge and everything. And you know, when you talked to me about this, I was actually thinking of the same thing, that maybe Kelly would take it over now. And but in the back of my head, I said, you may step down as Secretary of the Police Service Board, but you're not moving out of that office. So we know where you are. We'll be in there. Anyways, thank you. Item H, the AMO discussion paper. I believe you have had time to read this, that AMO have come out with a discussion paper concerning police service boards. And Dan, feel free to kick in, because Phenom's heavily involved in this. And part of it is concerning the detachment boards and what their plans are. Is they originally come out and wanted to have one detachment board per detachment. And, you know, as we discussed earlier, that doesn't necessarily work all over. And, you know, in this area, it's we have 2 detachments. And when they talked about DSAB, that doesn't work. How do we bring all like, what is there, 19 communities in your catchment area? So they spread a long ways, including Temiskaming, which isn't in the district. So there's lots of unanswered questions, and everybody's got ideas. Now, you know, AMO do have some good ideas in there as far as board appointees and what have you. So we're going to have to wait and see what shakes down, but I think we need to make sure that we have opinions in there. And as I said earlier at our last DSAB meeting, we've directed our CAO to advise the ministry that our board's not interested in being a police service board. Our DSAB board consists of 9 members. There's 2 from Kirkland Lake, 2 from Temiskaming Shores, and then there's 2 from the unorganized townships, and then the rest are representing 5-6 townships. So That's how, it works on DSAB. But we're working right across the district, not the north and not the south individually, much like the health unit do. So, Dan, do you have any comments concerning Phenom's position on this?
Yeah, the province decided to do a review of the Police Services Act, and in that they took a look at the structure of police service boards, and they asked the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, I sit on their executive, to put together a paper on what the municipalities would like to see. Somehow the suggestion that DSABs take over police service boards was included in that paper, and I was asked to research it when we started to hear some opposition to it, and I found out that out of all the DSABs, all the municipal associations, all the police service boards, and all the municipalities in Northern Ontario, nobody supported the idea. It turns out it was actually first suggested to the province by two DSAB CAOs who will remain unnamed, but who ironically both have municipal police forces, not OPP. So, but this has gained no support whatsoever. For lots of reasons, you would have people from the unincorporated making decisions on bills for the incorporated. DSAB operates under one set of legislation. The OPP operates under the Police Services Act. There's too much opportunity for conflict that it actually doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I have a meeting with the Solicitor General on this coming up. I don't see it going anywhere unless DSABs were to push for it, and I don't see that happening either. So,
I don't either. No, I don't either. So anyways, any comments or questions on that? We have a motion here, then I'll read you the motion. And we actually have a couple motions dealing with... I also, as Dan, I have a letter dating back probably 7 to 8 years ago that I submitted to the our OEPSB board, to the Solicitor General, when they started talking about amalgamating back then and putting boards together. So our area is known quite a bit throughout the province from work we've been done on it. And anyways, we'll deal with this one first, and then we'll move on to the next. I have a resolution 202016. Whereas the Phenom Board reviewed and discussed AMO's policy paper on the OPP detachment boards, building a framework for better policing governance, and whereas the Phenom Board identified several issues with the DSAB boards replacing the current detachment boards, noting that the community policing is distinctive to each municipality and the current DSABs would not be the best solution for overseeing the northern OPP detachments, and whereas the Phenom Board outlined several issues, including the discrepancy between the number of DSAB boards to the number of detachments, the representation on some boards with members of the municipalities with no OPP contracts, the concern that this will start a conversation about the creation of upper tier or regional governments in the north. Now therefore be it resolved that the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board hereby supports the Federation of Northeastern Ontario Municipalities' position that the current DSABs would not be the best solution for overseeing the northern OPP detachments. Further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Solicitor General, John Vantoff, MPP, Temiskaming Cochrane, the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, the District of Temiskaming Social Service Administration Board, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Further discussion was held on board structures. Whoops. Oh, that's the resolution. Okay. Okay. All right. So can I have a mover and a seconder on that, please? Monique? Dan? Any further question or comments on that? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay.
So Chair, yeah, it was for you to give a little report on the roundtable you and I attended back in February.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I didn't see the Kerry part in there. Yeah, okay, that's, yeah. We were discussing, when we went to that, we were discussing the possibility of one large police service board covering all municipalities, 19 in total. This thing stated that our municipal service was disbanded in 2007. At that time, there was an agreement that the city would be able to maintain a police service board. We have another resolution coming up here for your consideration, but I felt that way right from the start. We're the biggest municipality in the district. We certainly house probably at least 75 to 90% of the commercial outlets in our area. When the schools are in force, we have an awful lot of students and an awful lot of people coming in from outside the area that are here. And we feel that, you know, we were a Section 31 and we disbanded in favor of the OPP, which is fine. But we still feel that we need a police services board dedicated to the city so we can look after our interests rather than being put into something like a DSAB board where you're not totally focusing on what the issue is in your community. And I haven't got the opinion of Kirkland Lake yet, but the mayor did ask me to give him a call this week, so I will. I don't know how they feel at the other end about a detachment board or whether they, you know, I mean, that's their concern. But I feel here, we were promised that when we disbanded ours. We worked from 2004, I believe, to 2007 with a blended force, not blended, so to speak, that we wore the same uniform. The Temiskaming Shores Municipal Police were still here, and the OPP. And coincidentally, Joel, we've worked together great for years. So, you know, there was never, through this transition thing, ever any animosity between police officers. But then in 2007, Council made the decision to disband the local force and go to a Section 10 board and hire the services of the OPP, which has worked out well for us. But our goal today is, and I firmly believe, and this has been part of my work on the OAPSB right from the start, is trying to make them realize that our distances in the north and our populations and our centers, like, it's a little different than in the south. They're having amalgamations of boards in the south, but their borders are all contingent, and they're all, so to speak, bedroom communities for the big cities, so they can combine and they're getting the purpose. But I think there's too many differences between the city and some outlying areas where I think we need a dedicated police service board to maintain our interests and ensure that our people are looked after properly and we know what's going on. At that, I would like to open it for some discussions. If anybody has some ideas or comments, and if you disagree, feel free to disagree with me. It's all part of democracy. Dan, you have comments on it?
Yeah, if you look at the size of the contract that the city has with the OPP, and then all the other outlying areas, some are pay as you go, some have contracts, I'm assuming. You're trying to blend too many different entities together. I don't see how it would ever work.
Joel, you have comment? Feel free to comment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, from my perspective, first we've got to wait and see what the Police Services Act says, and what's the changes and what are they recommending and what we can and can't do. We've got a lot of policy, but I'm going to be following the direction provided by the Act and also recommendations and direction provided by region. But from my perspective, regardless of the makeup we have, I'm still going to be responsible, to remain committed to providing the best possible policing service we have for the community that I reside in. Very proud of the OPP, our service we provide, and the work that our officers do. And then my purpose is to evaluate and make sure that we're efficient and that we're providing the service in the most fiscally responsible manner. Your position in regards to having police services board unique for Temiskaming, I get it. But every municipality and every meeting I sit at, that's the concern for every municipality, being Temiskaming, Englehart, or Temiskaming. Temiskaming are reviewing, and then they're also exploring the possibility of changing responsibility for health services. So, and to join the north, you know, to blend in more with the services that are provided from our area. I'm totally neutral, but I assure you that whatever process or system that is advised, I will make sure that I provide the statistics and then the stats and the coverage that is necessary to the best and in a reasonable manner that we can provide to each municipality. I'm fully aware that the needs in Temiskaming Shores are significantly different than the ones in Temiskaming. Temiskaming got the lake and a lot of people that are living you know, on islands and in remote areas, and then their concerns are totally different in Temiskaming. And I agree with you. You got a lot of businesses here. You got the majority of the schools, but you do have a high school in Englehart, and you still have some high schools in the outside areas. So our service is going to be directed to where the needs are to make sure that you know, the community is as safe as it can be. So just, you know, rest assured that I'll do what I can to direct my members to offer the services in the best possible way, and then represent each municipality according to their needs.
Yeah.
So.
Our comments aren't made directing anything towards the OPP. You're professionals. We know we're going to get the very best service that you can give to us. My issue is I don't like the government dictating to us that we cannot have a police services board. And that's, you know, you say you'll go by whatever's in the act. Well, so will we. But that's why we want to take a proactive approach to this and suggest to them that we remain the same. I mean, I've gone so far as to say, I mean, I don't see anything. We have joint meetings now with Temiskaming, and they're great. But then we do come back and do our own business. They worry, you know, they have a big concern on the lakes, summer and winter, you know, with what they have. We have other concerns, basically, you know, with the, you know, the size of it, not concerns, we like the size of us, but, you know, different things. So our point is, and it's the point of some other places around Ontario, they're trying to make sure that they're protecting themselves from the legislation that's going to force them to do what they don't feel is right for their community. So that's where we're coming from. It's not a question of service, and it's not a question of picking up the phone and asking you questions. It's just we're trying to preserve what we have because that's what we were told, and we feel, or you know, those that I talked to, I'm not speaking for the board, you have to vote on this, but from the circles I'm in, I feel this is the best method to go, and you know, so do our council and things like that. So anyways, if there any comments? Yes, Tyler.
I was just going to say, I hold a lot of respect for DSAB and the work that they do, but it doesn't make sense to me an arbitrary realigning of the duties here to a DSAB board. So for that reason, I can't support, and I do support the notion of examining these recommendations and keeping what we have currently.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chris, did you have a comment? Yes.
It might be a question too for Joel in that. So when you and I had circulated an email that Doug had sent me after we attended that roundtable. So I believe currently, so we have the board in Temiskaming, a board in Temiskaming Shores, and a community policing committee. It's not a formal community policing, but a group in Englehart area, right, Joel?
Yeah, that's correct. Section 5.1, it's a community policing services board. It's not a police services board.
So if they change it, one of the things that Doug and I talked about on the trip back was, and the question for Joel is it onerous for him to, as detachment commander, to have to attend those 3 meetings? I think by going now, we're going to quarterly meetings, that I think that makes sense in trying to make sure that there's not that undue pressure, because he has to prepare those reports and that. But what our thought was, I think, Doug, was let's maintain, if they're going to do this for Temiskaming, or for Temiskaming detachment, let's have 3 boards then, keep Temiskaming but add some municipalities with Temiskaming, keep Temiskaming Shores basically as is, because it represents half the population out of the service area for the Temiskaming detachment, and then have a new board, so the board would be more formalized in the Englehart area and some of the rural townships around Englehart. And so it's really would be no different than what Joel is operating now, but rather than them say we're only one board for the Temiskaming detachment, the ask really is, can we keep our 3 separate groups, and we're going to add some municipalities into some of them, but if it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix something that doesn't seem to be broke? I think that was sort of our thought process after we attended that roundtable. But it would be good for us to have a resolution to send to the minister to formalize that at least we want to keep ours. And there's a suggestion in there for 1 or 2 more additional boards for Temiskaming detachment. But I don't know, Joel, if you want to make it, but if those 3 are working for you, do you think that's a fair assessment, that if it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix something that doesn't seem to be broke?
Yeah. So presently, I attend and I provide all the information for the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board, and then we're going quarterly, which is great. I'm doing the same for Temiskaming, and they're also moving to go quarterly reports, which is great. For Englehart and area, the Community Policing Committee, Staff Sergeant Forrest is assigned to that. I review the stats and everything else, but he does a presentation, does those meetings. If they do it quarterly, that'd be better, but now it's every second month. The issue, not the issue, but what I see is all those municipalities that are not represented, the ones that are not on these committees, what are they going to do with them? So like Temiskaming Shores is in the middle, I get it, and Temiskaming would be subject to acquire further municipalities. But just a quick review, and then like I said, this is up to the municipalities to decipher what's best for them. I don't mind 3 boards providing reports for the 3 separate areas, but we just can't expand to have too many more. 3 is great. If you can make it 2, better, or you know what I mean? But if 3 meets your needs, not a problem. But if I look at the boards and your suggestion, let's say like Temiskaming would take on Latchford, Coleman, Cobalt, which is great, but then it goes even further north, it bypasses, jumps Temiskaming, and then your proposal would be to include Harris, Hudson, Kearns, Casey, Breathitt. Perhaps it'd be easier if Englehart would take Casey and Breathitt, but then Harris, Hudson, Kearns, which are really close, could be part of Temiskaming. You know what I'm getting at? Because if you're going in geographical areas, and then you kind of got the south, you got us, and then you got the north. But then if you expand the zones and then you jump over to include townships that are beyond, then it'd be a difficult argument to say that they should be part of Temiskaming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just something to consider.
I don't think you were jumping over, though, when you were... I mean, this is only... I mean, perhaps this is unfair discussion if these other places aren't involved, and I prefer more to worry about us right now than that. I mean, we're going to have to take what they give us.
Yeah.
We just want them to understand that, you know, we were told we'd have it, and we feel the best interest of the citizen of Temiskaming Shores is to maintain a police services board. This subject's far from over, I think. It's you know, it's starting now to rear its head throughout the province. That there's more than the north not happy. And the northwest, they're having a really, I mean, we're vast here, they're even worse out there, so there's a lot going on. And like I said, whatever we're dictated to do, Joel, just like you, we'll have to do it too. And you know, we'll see. But they do say, and AMO did answer a letter from the Northeast. And Danny, you might have it. I couldn't find it this morning. I'm not the most technical able guy, and I just couldn't find it. But AMO did indicate in that response to them that yes, there's merit to what they were saying, that you know, these boards aren't necessarily, you know, if they're too big and they're too vast, they're not going to work. So, you know, we'll see what happens there. Anything else? I'll read the resolution that we have here then. Number 2020-17, whereas the Temiskaming detachment of the Ontario Provincial Police covers 19 municipalities in its coverage area representing 20,047 residents, and whereas the Ministry of the Solicitor General initiated consultations on OPP detachment boards in January/February of 2020, and whereas the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board was formed in 2004 with a hybrid municipal and OPP police service, and whereas the municipal police service was disbanded in September 2007 in favor of an OPP contract for the entire municipality with the condition that the Police Services Board be maintained, and whereas the Temiskaming Shores Police Service Board represents 1/2 of the population covered by the Temiskaming detachment of the Ontario Provincial Police, and whereas the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board desires to maintain a police services board in order to ensure effective and accountable police governance. Now therefore be it resolved that Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board hereby petitions the Ministry of the Solicitor General to maintain the Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board as a separate entity from any proposed detachment board, and further that alternatives be explored by the Ministry of the Solicitor General for the establishment of 1 or 2 additional police service boards for the remaining 18 municipalities within the Temiskaming detachment area. That's the motion. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Tyler? And a seconder? Nick? Are there any further questions or comments? No? Seeing none? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. I would also ask Kelly or Chris that that motion either be forwarded to me or the OAPSB also. Okay, moving on. Item 11, bylaws. We don't have any today, although we did have a discussion earlier, but we'll get some review done on those ATV bylaws and what have you. Closed session. We do not have a closed session today. Now, do I have the right schedule of meetings in this one, Chris?
So the one you have should have the correct, so I apologize. So it's for the next year.
Okay, yep. October 19th, January 18th, April 19th, July 19th, and October 18th. That's our meeting schedule from this point forward. Okay, work for you, Inspector, so far? They are quarterly.
Yeah, for the second quarter, which will be at the end of this month, you want me to send you a report electronically and you can distribute it to all the members?
That would be good if you can send it to Kelly, and then she can get it out to us earlier and we can have a look at it. And, you know, if there's any glaring questions, we can pick up the phone and ask it.
Absolutely.
You know, just so we can have a look at it, and that will speed up the next meeting because we'll have had time to go over it. Sure?
Okay.
Excellent idea. Thank you. Anything else there? Okay, I have, before I do, is there any questions?
There was just a couple comments of praise towards Vickers, EMS, and the police services. A couple of residents were very impressed with how often they saw the police patrolling, so that was nice, but there was no actual comments directly to the police services board.
That's good. Yep. Perfect. Did you have a question? No. Seeing nothing else, I have Resolution 2020-18. Be it resolved that the regular meeting of Temiskaming Shores Police Services Board be hereby adjourned at 2:38 p.m. And can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Tyler? And Nick. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to sign the card.